Kia ora mai rā nō rā tata. Ni tonu ana ki a tata, hui nei tēnei ata. E raro I te tūne e tō tata e whare tū haurani. Mihi ana ki a koutou. Whakara mai ki te whakarongorongo haere ki ngā kōrero. O tira ngā mahi kai mo I te aroa ni tēnei wā. Tēnā. Mei ana ki tēnā o tata. Kia tūwhera pai e tā tātou hui, kia karaki a tātou. Ka hoki anō ai ki ngā kupu karaki a tio. Reira. Tui e te rangi, tokuna te rangi, te mau ngā rangi ki te whai ki te ao mārama. Tai te tāmere pai te rara, whakaeki hia, whakaoporau, tūtara uini, tūtara waona, matatapu I matatapu mana mā, whakarere atu ki te rangi awa tēnei te pau ka tūi. Te pau teina ko I tua, ko I waho, ko I tō puke tō māharahara. E tū huri nuku, e tū huri rangi, e tū pakau rofa. E nuku ki runga, e nuku ki raro, e nuku hina atu, e nuku hina mai. E nuku whakahotu manoa e te toa, whakaua rongo kia teina, whanno, haramai te toki raka. Haimi e, hui e, tāi ki e, tēnā tātou, e tauana.
Tēnā o tātou, tūtahiake ka tuku mihi ki a koe a Joa, I whakatūwhere hea tēnei o tātou ni hui. Nō reira tēnā koe. Uriake ki a tātou, o tau nei tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora everybody. Just before we start the hui and work through our agenda, I did want to give an opportunity for the haukainga in particular, if they wanted to have a kōrero, raise any matters, raise any issues before we kind of get into the formal part of the meeting. I thought I'd just give that chance before we start moving through this. I mean, the meeting is still a structured, formal meeting in accordance with the Local Government Act, which restricts interaction from a public perspective. So before we move in, I just wanted to give a chance, particularly for the haukainga, whether Matua Tony, Helen or Rapuni or others wanted to raise anything before we step through the formal part of the meeting. I thought I'd just give that opportunity now. Kapai? Okay. Kia ora. Me haere tonu? Okay. I don't think we've got any apologies. I think everybody is here. Oh, Ruben. Ruben Fraser from the Regional Council is an apology, and we don't have anybody standing in for Ruben. Can I have a mover to that apology? Leah James and Darlene. All those in favour? Aye. Okay. We don't have a necessarily formal public forum this morning. We don't have any late items. We do have one change to the order of business. We're going to shuffle the operations report forward, and then we'll move into the cultural recognition discussion after that. Okay, can I have a mover to the change in the order of business? Bill, and seconded by John. All those in favour? Okay, next item on the agenda is the confirmation of minutes. Can I ask if there's any corrections?
Yeah, just note it should have included apologies under the apologies from Mayor James. It's not listed there. That was the last one we were away. Oh no, I'm thinking of the previous one. Sorry, yeah, my apologies. I read that the other night and noted that I obviously got it wrong.
Okay, I was there. I wasn't there, I don't think. So, were you there?
Yes.
I was absent at the last meeting. Okay, can I have a mover to accept those minutes? Bill? Oh, and Darlene, to second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Next item is declarations of conflict of interest. I have none. Okay, we did have a couple of presentations and I can't see Kit by.
No, he's not,
Oh.
he's not there, so we just defer until the next meeting.
Okay, Kippa's an apology for today.
Yes.
Okay, we'll defer Kippa.
Sorry,
for his.
Kipper, I'm just messaging Kipper now, he is with.
Oh, is he in the Teams? The Teams link is in the meeting.
He says he's in the waiting room.
It's okay.
Okay, we'll try and get him on. Oh, all right, we'll just get Kippa on.
That's not good. What we might do is, while we're trying to connect with Kippa, we might change the order of the presentations. And we might get Alva. We'll move Alva up and we'll defer Kippa until after Alva's presentation. Are you okay, Alva, to shuffle? Kia ora.
Where you can hit the hit the buttons. Like to,
Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou katoa, tuatahi he mihi aroha ki te whare e tūnei o tūhaurangi, te marae waho nei, te marae o tōku koraua, Whula Conroy me tōna mama ngā rete wikapu. Tōroa he mihi hoki ki o whānau and kia tātou katoa. So at our last meeting I provided a bit of an overview of some of the work that I was involved in as a contractor to the Western Bay of Plenty District Council and on behalf of Te Maru o Kaituna River Authority. So this is a bit of an update on where I've got to. So as a reminder, my brief of works was to look at identifying some priority sites or areas to enhance river access, whether it be for waka launching, swimming, mahinga kai. And we know that there's many sites that we're keen to enhance river access. And so one of my goals was to identify, where do you start? Where are some priority areas where we can throw some resourcing, some pressure towards? A couple of things for this is that I ended up identifying some areas with multiple sites. This enables a bit more of a holistic view in relation to our kaupapa in relation to this project. And then the scope looked at Kaituna River from about Paingurua downstream and widened the scope, so includes all of Waiari. So kia ora for that, Joelle. So over the last, what's it been, 2 months, I've built a bit of a picture based on going out on site, looking at a lot of our historic maps, and conversations with people, I guess, just to get a feel for the areas where people are using the awa, some of the constraints to access, and also some ideas. The ideas are actually the gold. Okay, so where I got to. So there's an assortment of sites, which I'll show the map, but I've identified 3 priority areas, which I'll go through each of them in turn. So the first one, which we're calling at the moment, Otu Matawhero. So this is the Bell Road area, just on the margin of Te Tumu and the Kaituna River. Second, Waiari Landing, which is no surprise. And third, the Waitangi area. So once again, no surprise. I think the latter 2 areas have been looked at as a priority area for some time. So I think part of this work is to work out, well, what's those next steps? So I'll go through each in turn. Oh my gosh, I don't know mine. So this is just an overview map showing some of those areas where I've identified some potential work that could be, some enhanced work that could be needed. It doesn't include all, because as we know with the Waiari there are further sites upstream, and this map is not big enough. So I'll speak to those priority areas. So initially, one of the areas to look at was Bell Road, the boat ramp. But as I looked into it, we've got a lot of areas of significance in that over there. So we're at Karakapa, Pārua, Kopua, and there's also multiple blocks of land. So it's not just the district council reserves that you need to be thinking about the connectivity to. So as we know, we've got our wetlands. That's land owned by Tapaweka and Ngāti Whakapui. We've got a future wetland coming with Karakapa, potentially, as well as a couple of land blocks that have recently been purchased by the regional council and the district council. So this presents some opportunities of actually looking at the area as a whole, not just upgrading the boat ramp. So a couple of things is the next step, there needs to be a concept plan developed for that area. So this is where you're looking at identifying the specifics. What are those areas that need to be enhanced? Access for swimming, those connectivities to the various walkways and cycleways within that area. Goes without saying, recognition of cultural context and the historic context of that wider area. Opportunities for new wetlands along the way. Picnic facilities and potentially wharapaku. But this is the point of doing the concept plan, is looking at, well, where might that go and for what reason. Must be an approach with tangata whenua and with multiple agencies. So district council, regional council, and I imagine DOC may want to be involved. In the meantime, it is my understanding that there will be some work coming in the next 6 months or couple of months around safety and amenity enhancements. So we know there are some issues there at the moment with some nefarious behaviour, and so there are some plans proposed by the district council to install things like jump bars, CCTV, I think that's in place already, and then some basic enhancements in the meantime. So I'll give you an idea of what the concept plan idea is. So this was the concept plan that was developed for Taiparia Reserve at the end of Ford Road. So this is where you're looking at an area as a whole and working out where you might put stuff or where you might do stuff. So this is something that would be great to see for that particular area. Now there's a big but, and this is the case for all of these areas. there are a gazillion kilometres of stop banks within this area, and to an extent this may limit what you can do in these areas, or it may create, red tape is not the word, but there may be additional authorities and permissions you may need to get. So for this reason, I'd recommend that the Regional Council is involved as part of a working group, just to make sure it is all in line with their bylaws. Alright, next one, Waiari Landing. So to me, this isn't just the bridge area, but we need to be looking all the way from Tawaki Pito Marae downstream to the rail bridge, because there's different reasons. Your access would be for different reasons. So for our two marae there, a lot of our access may be for mahinga kai and other cultural practices just downstream of the bridge on the right bank. Just highlighting there are other things happening in the area, so we also have the existing Te Ara Kahikatea walkway. There's discussions that Ngāti Tuhiki are having around the return of land, ex-Waka Kotahi District Council land, as well as highlighting that at the moment, from what I've seen on site, there's a lot of swimming happening at the bridge and at the rail bridge. So highly used is probably the key thing. I also want to acknowledge that there's been some amazing recommendations through this group alone with the cultural recognition report. It's provided a lot of ideas of what our whānau would like to see in that area. And on top of that, Council Delhi had presented to Te Marua Kaituna highlighting some of the issues around access and erosion as well. So we're not starting from scratch, is what I'm trying to say. There we go. A couple of challenges with these areas. The area, this part of the Waiari has some significant erosion issues, and it's getting worse. And I think this is an area that needs to be worked through with the Regional Council with regards to bank stability. What I'm noticing with the banks falling in is the awa's getting shallower. And so it's actually, places aren't great for swimming, and it's affecting the access to the awa. Secondly, there are some limitations due to the stop banks in the area. Once again, this may limit what you can put down or the activities you do. So this is once again one of these projects where we need to be involved with the Regional Council engineers just to help guide us around what we can put and where. Alright. Opportunities. So it is a well-used area. When I went down there last week and there were kids swimming, and the one thing I asked them, what do you guys need to get down to the awa easily, because it's really silty and muddy, and they said steps. So some of the solutions may be quite straightforward. So it's working out some really easy practical solutions that aren't going to affect the stop banks. So in terms of next step, there's some easy things that can be done now, some weed clearance, just so you can walk along. That's easy. But then the other thing is, this is another one of these ones that needs a concept plan. And I had hoped to actually progress that closer, but I think this is the one that needs a bit more time. This needs a further collaborative effort to work out what you might put in where, who pays for it, and as I say, bringing in the Regional Council once again. So that's all the same. Third area, this one's less progressed. Waitangi area, so we know there's been talk about access at the reserve for so long. So with this one, so some of the ideas that I'd heard over the last couple of months, a small jetty, some are not wanting anything. So once again, I think this is one of these ones where it just needs more time and discussion to work out what's possible or what's realistic for this area. And another thing that whānau had raised, this is a significant swimming area right here that was destroyed through some flood works that were done by the Regional Council. So once again, I want to try and link in the Regional Council again to help support the enhancement of access. Next steps for this one, I think a good chunk of next year needs to be working with Ngāti Moko, Tūhourangi Hitai around the possibilities for this area and this area. Whether that results in a concept plan or maybe some easy solutions. Now, I've only got a couple more slides. So other areas that had come up, Ōtaiparia Reserve. This is the existing access for the Makatū Hoiwaka. So they were really keen on some enhanced access. It's very silty where they are. Main thing is that the existing concept plan includes an upgrade of this area and it's budgeted for. So once again, it's the value of having these concept plans so you can determine the budget requirements. Murewharau, or Canaan's Landing at the end of Kenana Road, had come up. This was a historic landing site back in the day. And this is the one, I think it's not a high priority, but it would be a great, it's a council reserve, I forgot to mention. But I think this would be one to park until such time as there's greater connectivity to this area, if that makes sense. So on the radar, but just not yet. Other sites that had come up, Maungarangi Road, the photo's terrible, so there's some easy enhancements you can do around here to access the sites, and parking is a bit of an issue as well. So once again, Te Mātou Road, so we've had whānau that are keen to enhance access from the marae down to the river. Once again, further discussions needed as to what that might look like. Similar issue. What? I don't want to restart. Yeah. The X up the top in the right corner. Ah, here we go. There we go. A few people had talked about the water treatment at the water treatment plant site. Apparently some really amazing swimming up there. It's really pristine. Obviously, further work's needed to work out where and what that might look like and if it's possible. And once again, acknowledging there's still these other sites that were in your cultural recognition report. So what I'm trying to say is there's a couple of the high priority areas where concept plans will be needed. These other ones won't be forgotten. They may be progressed directly with some of the reserves department or other, they may actually progress faster. Before I finish, I want to introduce Jason, who will come and introduce himself. So when I step back from this project in the next 6 or so weeks, he will be taking over and I'll let you.
Kia ora koutou, ko Jason Crummer, taku ingoa. I am the Senior Recreation Planner at the Western Bay Planning District Council. I have the privilege of working with our policy and planning team. So you're linking in with Alva's work here. From once we get the final feasibility reports, then I can look to present those findings to our elected members and just seek some direction from them and see how we can progress, what priority areas we can progress, and just make decisions that way. But it's been a long time coming, being able to attend one of these hui. So they eventually made it, and looking forward to more engagement with this group in the future, particularly around the river access.
So of course, Jason will be available as the main point of contact, particularly with regards to implementing your cultural recognition report. It's probably the key thing. Just to know we'll keep moving.
Good.
So I'll go back a couple of slides showing the whole area. Happy to take any questions, comments.
John.
It's maybe a bit premature, but in terms of the Bell Road site, I noticed one of the actions you had up is the upgrade of the boat ramp. Just wondered what the scale of that was in mind. I don't want that to overwhelm the other things that you want to attend to there.
Absolutely. So that came about from, I was reading a report by, I can't remember who it was, who had done looked at the condition of the boat ramp, and I think one of the out readings from the report was that it's in poor condition. So it may be up to whoever's part of the working group, whether that's just a base of repairs as opposed to making it
upgrade.
fancy pants or anything, so it could be just basic repairs.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, thank you.
I just have one question about when will we receive a report about the 6 areas identified for the Waiari? When will we receive that?
So my next step, it'll be after the Te Maro Kaitana River meeting on the 24th, so I'll have the report completed by early December. Yeah. And so if you'd like, within my report, I can talk about those 6 areas and the next steps for those 6 areas, because that's probably what you want to see most of all, is making sure those 6 areas are acknowledged in terms of those next steps.
You don't have the typical sewage scheme on the wastewater plant, but you should put in the typical sewage scheme on there too as a significant site.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just have a comment to make out with regard to Otu Matapero. I noticed you mentioned in their swimming. I just want to explain to our councillors present that we probably haven't swum down that end of the river since the wastewater treatment plant was put in there. And I'm going back to my childhood years, was probably the last time I swam down there. Because of that association, as soon as that wastewater treatment plant went in there, that went our association with that part of the other. So I'm not too sure about the swimming down there. And just a comment about the Waitangi reserve area. It's cool you want to talk to the hapu, but I don't want to stand on the toes of the landowners.
Yep.
So
landowners first. So landowners first.
Yes,
Yes.
please.
I like
yes.
Beautiful.
the Waipiha family and the Upper Middle family, so the principal ones.
Beautiful.
Helen is quite correct.
Awesome.
I'm kind of giving liberties here, but that's fine. Thanks, Al. I do have a question as well. Just in terms of those areas,
Yeah.
does Regional Council have any data on or information on water quality from a swimming perspective?
They will. They will. So I can include that in the rep. Yeah.
That'll just help with, is it a swimmer or is, the E. coli and other things in the water. That would be helpful. Thanks.
Can I just clarify exactly how much collaboration you've had so far with each council on this? And obviously you've worked out who owns what land, but has there been much more about what's feasible from our parcels as perspective?
Yep. So a lot of my interaction has been with the district council, nothing with the regional council yet, because I think I needed to work out the priority areas before doing some testing with them. The next thing is that the reserves team will be doing, so having a look through this feasibility to work out what actually is realistic to go into my final report. So we're still chipping away.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'd just like to probably if you could enhance your report a bit further, because it concentrates on social and a wee bit of the heritage.
Yeah.
But we're dealing with a quadruple bottom line. There's 4 things to it: social, cultural, environmental, and those 4 bottom lines are economics. And of course, the question I'm asked is, who do you drag to pay the piper? Now, the regional council bought Port of Tauranga, and they got 56% shares in Port of Tauranga. Their responsibility is not only the economic capital, it's the social capital. In other words, the things that you're talking about, they should be assisting to pay in a big way.
Absolutely.
It's not only about making money, it's about also their social responsibility because if you look after the environment will look after the economy. So I just wondered if you would enhance your report a bit further to include those 4 bottom lines.
Absolutely, I'm happy to. And I think this one thing with the concept plans is and one of the reasons why I wanted to include other councils is to enable that shared resourcing, so it's not just on the district council.
Or even the Department of Conservation
Yeah.
and government
Yep.
with the 3 waters is going to make them quite conscious about fronting up with a checkbook.
Kia ora, any other pātai for Elva?
Oh yeah, could we have a copy of your presentation, please?
I'll hand that to Sam to circulate.
What
Low
a-
resolution.
Well, I think the second or third slide you had furniture on there. You took in park benches, that sort of thing.
Yeah, whether it's park benches or seats or
And the map you had with the discussions with Ngāti Tuhiki, I think the shading should have been in a much larger area.
like a bright red. That one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, just one question from me, well, another question from me, Albert, for clarity. So, the work that you're doing
Yes.
connects in with both this committee, but also
Absolutely.
across to Te Maru Kaituna.
Yeah.
So there are opportunities to. Okay. Any other pātai for Elva?
No, just a big meeting to me. Feeling quite excited.
No toilets at Waiari.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, Elva, thank you.
It's all in your area,
Okay. We will move to our next presentation, and that is from Dr. Kipper. Hopefully he's online.
Yes, yeah.
Kia ora, Kipper, can you hear us? Oh, you're
You're
on
on
mute.
mute. TV might be turned
Our
down.
volume might be turned down. We'll just check volume.
Might be the volume on TV, I know.
Can I screen share here? I'll just see how we go. Share. This one. How's that? Can everybody see that?
Papai? Yep, we can see your emails.
Hello? Okay, have we got the Waiari testing? Couple. So what we've been doing, we've been doing an online tool to assist with meeting the consent for the water tank on the Waiari, which was to quantify the impact upon Mauri and Mauri Ora. And you would have seen this before. Now we've got the prototype launched on the Tapuika iwi site.
You need to tell them.
Can you tell me
And what
Reading his
we're
emails.
doing now is augmenting that with additional indicators. So this looks the same, but you can see that there are a lot more indicators there. And in the 4 dimensions that we identified.
Can you hear me?
Pardon me?
We're looking at your Gmail.
Yes.
Oh, so we're reading the contents of that email.
Not maybe.
No, you should be looking at,
No.
you should be looking at the site.
No.
Share this head instead. Okay, here we go. Now it might work. Have you got this?
Manu's got it, we have
You can see it, Kevin?
Yeah.
Now we have it.
Cool.
Okay, must have been some delay or something. Comply. So, this is part of that, that consent condition to quantify the MODI and MODI order. And this will be familiar. We haven't displayed the overall modiometer that would normally sit in the bottom left because this is being developed and there are quite a lot more indicators that we've included. So I click onto the water monitoring tab, you'll see the extent of the indicators. So for Taiao, I think we've got 9 indicators there now. For Modi o Ngāti Tūheke, we've got 26. For Modi o Te Whānau, the economic ones, we've got 9. And for the Hapori, I think we've got 12. So these are all the indicators that we identified in the wānanga that were held at the church in Te Puke. These are still quite preliminary, and the idea is that we get them up and each one is available individually to see how it's tracking and get a better understanding of where the thresholds are set. To give you an example, we're sitting on the summary, but if we go to Taiao, just as it comes up, this is giving all the different parameters that we are monitoring, and you can see it's popped up with the first one, nitrates, and we can add the national policy statement for freshwater limits. You can see the 95th percentile there. The colour thresholds on the graph show where the data is sitting in terms of the modiometer. If we go to the monthly average, you can see that both of them are sitting mostly in the orange, but if we go to the annual median, that's when we're sitting right on the margin of being into the -2 zone. So as well as that, we can go back and we can choose any date historically that we've got data for, and that will show up at that time. I'll show you turbidity. These are snatch samples taken by Tauranga City Council at the site. We put the thresholds on, it makes it a bit easier to understand the data and why it's currently reading at very close to +2. Let's see. We've got these additional ones here which aren't changing a lot. The monitoring, the vegetation. These aren't changing because those are manually assessed when we do an assessment. And you can see the last assessment was done on the 1st of July 2022. Sorry for the American date notation. So I'll move from that one to the cultural indicators. And you can see we've got the flow indicator there. And again, adding the thresholds, you can see where the modiometer is currently sitting. If I go to, let's see, marae kawa around the tuna availability to be on the table at the marae. We've had 2 assessments there, one last year and one more recently this year. No change, it's sitting in the 0 position for those. Now what we will do is we'll add the definition of the thresholds here on the bottom right so that it's clearer when you click on each actual tab what's going on. What Alva was just talking about, great report Alva, landings, as those are developed, I think what we'll need to do is add these specifically, the Waiari landing, the reserve at Waitangi and so on, and we'll split those out so that those can be geographically assessed and we can monitor the progress on improving those in terms of their Māori contribution and the Māori order that results. So, let's see. I'll go to social. You were talking about swimmability. You can see the Manu Bombs capability. There really isn't any good locations because it's too shallow at the moment where State Highway 2 crosses the Waiari. In terms of swimmability, it's a little bit better, but it's still not good in terms of the water quality, and part of that is actually having access. So that's those. In terms of the economic indicators, the whānau Māori, we're still setting up how to measure a couple of these. But if I go to, we've talked about iwi water allocation, which was included in the consent, but in terms of the thresholds, what's included in the consent doesn't really meet the iwi requirements of enhancing Māori, so it would need to be acted on and put in place and so on. So that's pretty much everything we've got there. Probably the thing now is just to have some Q&A, and I think there was a, let me see, we're back, and I'll just go to the slideshow very briefly. Okay, I can't actually pull that through for some reason. Okay, never mind. It's quite a big file, but I'll park that and take any questions. Thank you.
Kia ora Kipper, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Okay. Yes, I can hear.
Kia ora. Are there any questions for Kipper? James has got a question.
So you mentioned that the criteria are it's early stages, they're draft at the moment. Do you know when those will be finalised, or what input you need to finalise those?
Okay, so the process we're working on at the moment is to progressively wānanga these indicators. The stage that is at the moment, that what we just shared, it's not public facing. So it's really the opportunity to see them up, to get an understanding of how they represent the different indicators and how they combine. And then once that there's some comfort with that, they'll be added to the public-facing website that you can access through the Ngāti Tapawika, the Ngāti Tapawika iwi website, using the Māori Monitor icon on their website. What we also want to do is tweak that platform as a twin or a triplet, if you like, for both Ngāi Waikaha and for Ngāti Whakau ki Maki too, so that those could be viewed through their websites, but using the indicators that are appropriate for each of our other iwi, and the sites specifically that are more relevant to them along the way.
Thank you. Any other questions for Kipper? Couple. Kia ora Kipper, we don't have any further questions, but just wanted to mihi to you. Thank you for the mahi that you're doing, and look forward to seeing how this progresses.
Excellent, thank you. Anton? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sure who was... just one comment. Would it be appropriate, Alva and everybody there, to add some of the information from Alva's report into the website in terms of the test platform, so that we can see what that would look like
augmenting some of the indicators.
It might be more of a technical conversation you might want to have with the team, keep up with Alva and the team.
Kapai.
Sorry,
Okay.
it's Shad here, chairing the meeting.
Thank you.
Kia ora. Okay, we'll move to the next part of our agenda, and that was the change. So we'll have the Waiari operational report. So over to you, Peter. I'm not sure we've got a couple of slides, but I think the report's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, I didn't prepare a presentation because it's just fairly straightforward. Just really the update on the Waiari flows. The flows are remaining at a higher level. They sit when I wrote the report about sitting at an average of about 7,400 litres per second compared to the long-term average, which is about 4,200. So it's significantly higher than the normal average. Again, it's a bit premature to say how long it's going to stay there. We are getting into a drier spell again, and the projection is that summer will be drier with an El Nino type weather pattern coming along. But at this stage, the flows are looking very promising. Just take any questions.
Any questions for Peter? Pardon?
Has your planning taken into account the issues like global warming?
It is. The planning is being prepared for climate change. It's become more of a reality. Our planning team are also preparing a freshwater management tool, and part of that is to give consideration to climate change.
Would you include mountains to the sea in your planning? Because
that is the plan, correct. So it's looking at the circular economy of water.
Yeah, because the streams and creeks that come from the mountains are only the floodplains to the main artery. And you happen to be dealing with the tap, and the tap is the main artery, which is the way out.
Kia ora, Manu, thank you. Any other questions for Peter? I've just got one, Peter. On the second graph that shows the daily flows, that red line in the bottom right-hand corner where it talks about Waiari abstraction, it's a flat red line. What is that indicating?
It's just that the amount that we're taking is so small, it's not showing as a, but it's, it's of the order of 50 litres a second, that type of thing. So it's a very small amount, and that's why it just looks like a flat line.
Okay. And the yellow line is the consenting?
The yellow line is a notification level, so
Okay.
2,800 litres a second. So if it drops to that level, that's when we would notify Tapuika area authority.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? James?
Yeah, Peter, it's hard to interpret the data definitively, but it seems to me that every now and again you get a really wet year, and then you get 2 or 3 years of declining flows as that water seeps out through the arbor.
Correct.
Is that roughly the interpretation you would give to it?
So pre-2019, the stream flows have been up and down, but they remain fairly well above any low limits that we had. It was those 3 years that we had below average rainfall in a row that created that scenario where we started seeing significant drops in the aquifers. But with the unprecedented rainfall that we've had, it's also recharged again. The reality that we're all facing is we don't know going forward. The variability of the rain and dry periods. We've never had, in the 50 years of records that I've been looking at, there's never been 3 years in a row where we've had below average rainfall. So even that's been a different scenario that we face. So I think the reality is that we're trying to look at planning it such that we take these type of things into consideration going forward. But I think we've got to accept that there are more extremes and weather patterns is going to be part of our lifestyle going forward.
Any other questions for Peter?
Yes, I do have one more comment. I have a comment to make. So, with the new legislation in Te Manawa, what happens when there's a scenario where we have an event where we've got another 3-year period where the water levels drop? What happens then?
So in terms of even during that, the last very dry period that we had, we managed the water supply such that we didn't breach any of our consents. The important thing is that we've introduced a number of measures to try and make sure that we use water more efficiently. We do have the Water Watchers plan in place, and the idea is that manages water seasonally so that people think about how they use water, especially during summer. We would be managing during the last period. We had no access to the Waiari either. That gives us a little bit more flexibility to be able to spread the load over all our treatment schemes.
So was that kind of like your plan B?
Our plan is to manage within the consents that we have, and we would never take more than we're allowed to in terms of the consents. You know, we've really done quite a lot of work into trying to ensure that people don't use water for purposes that are not considered good use of drinking water. And an example of that would be using drinking water for dust suppression. We stopped, as a council, we stopped doing that a number of years back. We issued notification to the contractors that wasn't what we considered good use of water, and stopped that practice. Through the Water Watchers plan, we've introduced a number of other changes, and the idea is that, again, we're trying to get people to think differently about how they use water, and with that behaviour change comes water saving as well. So we believe it's a good step in terms of Te Mana Otawa.
Just one more. Curiosity more than anything else. Have you done an analysis on mid-Canterbury? There's always one. What happens with mid-Canterbury is that the Waiari, not the Waiari, the river that runs through mid-Canterbury, it's about a mile wide in the winter, and it's only about a chain in the summer. And their farming style changes, have changed with it over time, and they have some of the best Corriedale sheep in the country because they learned to adapt with the changing of the landscape. Have you done an analysis on mid-Canterbury? That's a big good idea.
No, we haven't, but certainly we can pick that up. Thank you.
Right, any other further questions for Peter? I do want to acknowledge the work that Peter's done, particularly around the Water Watchers. One of the things that, I'll just take the opportunity. One of the things the Commission's been conscious of is that, and Peter raised it, is that we do need to be thinking about water differently. You know, I talked about it in our mihi this morning, that we need to be thinking about water first. You know, with councils invested millions of dollars in the community paying for it, for a state-of-the-art water treatment plant. And ultimately, like as Peter says, we don't want to see that investment being used to do things like dust suppression or actually watering your garden with high quality water. So the council's quite keen on promoting, I suppose, where we can about the value of water with the community. Changing our thinking about it's not just an infinite resource, well it is an infinite resource, but we do need to be valuing it in a different way. I mean, take the point this morning about, from a Te Ao Māori perspective, is that water has its own mana. But I do want to acknowledge Peter and the team, and this Water Watchers program actually won an award at the recent Water New Zealand conference, and so just really want to acknowledge the team and the mahi that they do. Yeah, just wanted to acknowledge that. Kapai. Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. So, which is working through our cultural recognition. So I'll hand it over to Kelvin. Oh, sorry. Before we do that, I do need to move it that we receive the report. Bill and Joelle. So that's to receive Peter's operational report. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
The report is probably sparse, and once you take it through, there are probably just some explanations around some of the things. So in point 6, we only managed to have one sub-meeting as a group. The majority of that time was spent, quality time spent with Dr. Captain Morgan working through the Waiari model, in particular the cultural indicators, and you're seeing a bit of a snapshot of where they got to on that. I asked Sam to probably shed some light on it, because there's some really good dialogue that went on, some really good things. So, thanks to Dr. Captain Morgan for engaging and getting some direction on some of those things. Our second meeting didn't happen. It was due to a number of us not being available. We decided not to hold that meeting. People are busy and lots going on. However, there are things, as I'll start to explain, that have been happening behind the scenes. It was great to see Elva's presentation today too. Some good traction going there. I can see a lot more going forward. One of the things we want to do is just work our way through the 6 initiatives, and I think one of the interesting ones for us would be the discussion that took place at Regional Council, and obviously recognise that we don't have Ruben Fraser here today, but I did have a conversation with him yesterday on the phone. But I think it's probably important that from the iwi representatives that met with Fraser walked away probably a little bit frustrated and disillusioned. And so I'm going to confer to Sam, talk about, because Sam was there at the meeting, I wasn't. So, Sam, do you want to give a bit of an overview of that question?
Tuatahi mea te mea ni te whakau te whānau. Nā mano te tipu nei, kei te mea te whare hau nei. Tūhaurangi te tini atu te yeah, so just moving on regarding our meeting. It fits under the umbrella of the Māori model application when we were sitting with the Regional Council. That's a meeting that was actually tabled quite some time ago. We were able to have that meeting. We ended up having 2. I know Dar was there, and Oil was there as well, and we also had some of the staff members at that hui. I wasn't at the first hui, but I came to the second hui. Just by way of an update, that was on the BV singer from the side, yep. Kia ora. Yeah, just by way of an update, I think the initial meeting was good. It just sort of put out there, I suppose, the whakaaro from the reps at this table regarding what they're looking for in terms of the monitors of Māori on the awa, and previous conversations that we've had with Regional Council about how they can tautoko and support that. The second meeting was a little bit probably not as productive, because we found we were talking across each other and actually not hitting what we were there to do. So there was a little bit of frustration there. What we did realise was that I think other staff members had taken control of that conversation. I think even from our co-chair Dale was about, we had to really drive it home that there was a tono on the table from regional to say we can help you in a way to provide monitors or monitors. Just had to go through a process. At the end of that, we found out that
they'd rather take it through an LTP process, which was totally not the expectations of the reps, and so therefore it sort of didn't really go down well. Like Calvin said, we've had an update from Ruben, which is cool. It would have been a good opportunity to flesh that out here at this table, but there'll be other opportunity for that. But I think from my understanding is that that left a big question mark on whether or not that support was actually going to be there. And so what I ended up doing was, and it's good that our whanaunga Rapuni is here, and tēnā koe, tēranga tira, on your new position. He's been able to actually support some of the conversations that have been at that table and actually provide some scope on some potential solutions, which have come solely from the iwi, not necessarily from our partner in the regional. So where we land now is to take some of that whakaaro that Tapuika have, look at some ways that we need to be absolutely, on the same waka, and figure out, is this really an LTP process situation, or do we need to look at other things? So that's how we went. And then in relation to the model application, the presentation from Matua Kepa there was the culmination of this Ropu's last hui, where we covered about 9, maybe 10 indicators, and we spent hours into that. It's actually a lot of work when we think about it. So I want to acknowledge our reps here who actually give up their time to put that mahi into the model, so that a man like Kepa can present that back, to this book. So that in a nutshell is where we go.
Thanks. So one of the other things that I talked about at our last meeting was the ability to be able to come back and put some numbers against each of our 6 initiatives to ensure that, from my perspective, I put a staff submission into the council's long-term plan, but also for the other councils to have the ability to do something similar. Each council has different constraints around time. Ours, as staff, have to have it submitted by beginning of December. So what I've done is I've actually produced a budget, which I'm going to run you through a PowerPoint. No one's seen it yet, only me. And just as I said last time, I wanted to ensure that I covered some items off. And I think from a iwi representation, the detail that we had in the report from day one gives a high-level brief, so that's great. What needs to be fleshed out more is probably around the ability to deliver on some of those things, and that's more at our working level. But we'll give this a go. So I say it's a draft report. So that's really, again, was our 6 cultural initiatives. Some of those are intertwined and joined together, but I'm still keeping them separate for this purpose. Thank you. So, I've highlighted it red so people can see, make it easy, where I've changed what was in the original reports each time as we go through. I've put in a sum of money there where I think around £1.2 monitors in terms of what we're talking about. Again, that is around having to cover off, if you have employed people, covers off health and safety, reporting, transport, those sorts of things. So I've come up with a number and put it in there. I've also down the bottom there, given the Māori model is delivering at the moment, but still needs ongoing support, I've put some money in there to be able to assist in that. And again, as Sam has said, we're very grateful to some of our iwi representatives who spent time and effort on that, not getting paid, sort of conscious of those sorts of things, so that allows a bit of money to come back in that direction. So, again, I've put a sum of money, and I'm going to give you, when we get to the end of these 6 initiatives, I'll give you the shock number, what it is at the bottom. But essentially, that's what I've tried to do. Go to the next slide, thank you. And again, this is around some of the reasoning around what I've done. Let you read that. I don't need to read that. But I do recognise that some further discussions need to happen with Regional Council on this, and my discussion yesterday on the phone with Reverend Fraser was positive in the fact that yes, he wants to move forward. So we'll just need to engage a little bit more with that and develop that.
Sorry, can I just ask a question? Sorry,
Yeah.
Calvin.
Go for it, just go through, yeah.
So, because the application of this doesn't just benefit the Waiari, it actually benefits the Kaituna as well.
Yes.
And the regional council have role and function in terms of the Maru Kaituna,
Yeah.
along with partners around the table. So, you know, there's potential to be able to kill two birds with one stone, essentially.
Correct. Yes, that's right.
Correct, I think that's the approach that you are taking as well, because they're already in that space, and so that's sort of something we...
So in terms of the restoration area, again, I put some numbers in here around the key tasks that we provided. And, you know, there is services required with some of the professional consultancy type things that are going on. So I put something in there, and you see we talk about this things underway with Western Bay and with Elvis report. So, you know, but again, I put some funding in there. The big one I put in there is a suite of enhancements contained within the report, and you know, it's $520,000. And I've got a slide to explain how I've come up with that number. But one of the things again is agreed on the timeline for these activities. Now, one of the constraints that our council and Western Bay have is that we only have 2 years reporting for the LTP at the moment, as the legislation stands under the water reforms. So normally we'd be reporting over a 10-year period. We've only got 2 years at the moment, unless things change and we get told something different, then we'll have to allow it another 8 years. Kind of made it a little difficult, but I've just worked on the assumption we're tracking on that basis. But I've allowed money in there for official opening and a cultural, you know, event at the end there, because it just needs to set a date, and I don't want to preempt that, but that's what's flagged up. If you go to the next slide, you get a bit of a feel for a breakdown of those suite of enhancements, and I'll try to cover this one. I think the question was asked around Elva when she did a report around having you know, barbecue areas and tables and stuff. So I've tried to cover off all the main items that we put in there to come up with that number, just so it's no shock to anybody. The bridge is one of the biggest components, to put a footbridge across there. Again, I think there's an opportunity for not necessarily just being funded by councils, but I think there's other opportunities with third parties in funding, and it's amazing what sponsorship can be dragged out too, but you need to have a bit of a plan, so it gives you an idea of that number. Please feel free to ask any questions as we go through. We can go back to the game. So the storytelling. This is a really good one. I know it's underway at the moment. There's some initial things that have happened with staff, even from our side, and the whole video thing. So that needs to keep trucking on. There's money for that to happen now, and I think getting those stories is going to be one of the key things. So I've just called it a stage 1 and a stage 2. And made sure we've got some funding in to cover that off. I mean, production of videos is not cheap, so we need to have something, and the quality needs to be right at the end of the day. And I've just some comments around that. River access points. So again, this is something that Elva's been working on, but I've also, again, put some money against each one of those itemised items there. And again, a lot of it is probably around getting enough detail together to be able to present plans, be able to then get to the next stage around actually actioning and physically doing those works. So, yeah. Just so you put some numbers in there, and again, you know, you'll see some of the LTP. You'll see a couple come up in the ops, some of the cost against ops. Next one. So I'm not saying that we've got enough money in there. I'm just saying that we just need to understand the scope a bit more. But it's a start to get started. Regeneration program. This again is around the overall plans for the area, and again I've put some money against ops there, which we do have, and others against the LTP. Again, this is not going to cover all the physical works required, but it gets us to a point where the works can happen. And again, this money's not assigned at the moment. It's just a number I've come up based on past experience and know what you need to do to get to that. Just go to the next one. So again, this is what we've been working on, and there's a lot of hooey, not a lot of at the moment, but it's around joining things together. But I am trying to get a scholarship plan organised for 24, and again, a lot of that will go towards getting the application process, getting chosen applicant and getting them underway, and start funding some of that through there. And again, those probably don't need explaining, but you can see where I've started to add external funding and there's some opportunities there, I believe, around scholarship opportunities. And that, what I've been talking there is down in Wellington, I've been talking to around that. And I'll be able to, for now, the draft, we'll be able to maybe expand that as we go forward. And that's at national level, so over the last few years I've built quite a network of people in the training industry, and so I'm levering on some of those things around what I did later. So look, there's a bit of a summary of those numbers that I just went through, and if you put them all together it's $1.4 million. So it doesn't take long to add up, and I'm not saying that's the final amount by any means, but it does give us a starting position. One of the key things for me is probably the next stage around. I need to have a discussion with Western Bay and the Regional Council and go through each of those and figure out, as Murray keeps pointing out, the checkbook, who's going to get it out and who's going to fund what. And then that'll allow each of the staff within those organisations to then do their own internal submission to their LTP. There'll be some joint opportunity for funding from third-party external, so that'll be one thing we'll get together and jointly do it, but that just gives you the number. Just go to the next one. So part of the process for next step is I look at some of the things there to be done, and while they look simple, some things are going to require some resource consent process and timing. And I think the good thing about having all councils in the room at the same time, we should be able to nail those down. What are they? Let's put the list up. What's going to take time? So anything we do down on the Waiari, especially if we're building a structure, generates a number of things. Obviously, from a safety perspective, around public using it, so you've got to go through a whole process. You can't just go and put it up. So it's around getting some timing and understanding of how long is that going to take before you can get underway. But I think the key one will be a program that can put up on the wall and say, here it is, this is what we're running with, and then people can see that in concrete. What I am going to ask for as the last, one more slide after this, is from this meeting, it would be great if I can get a support letter from the EU reps as a collective group that will go to each council. Now, I haven't told this person, but my gentleman to my left here, Sam, is going to help you with it. You won't need to do a great deal. We'll put what we think needs to go in the letter, but you may want to craft it and add your own personal flavour. I'm going to ask Sam to manage that with you, so we can each send to each council a letter in support of the 6 cultural initiatives. I need to have some stuff done. I think we put draft budget was today's date on there. I'll be able to get more of an update after it, but I'm planning on having a meeting with the other councils before the end of the month, so last week, and just to go through some of this stuff. But the main thing is around us getting some form of agreement and then allowing us to go through with the councillors, with their commissioners and the regional councils around that. And I'll probably, if it's okay with Western Bay, I'll come to your meeting and sit on that, and I'll go to regional council so I get a flavour around all 3 councils now. So that's what I have here to offer you today. Again, please take it as it was a draft. I didn't want to put it officially in a report, but I did want to get some feedback today, and please take the opportunity now to speak here.
Yeah, I'll open the camera. To apply, there's 2 sections that I think that we should be applying to. One is called the affected parties, and the other one is called the parties of interest. So if you put that into a broad sense, what affected party means that you've got to include iwis. There's a lot of iwis running around in treaty settlements. Treaty settlements are acts of decree, so you can actually use that to be a resource, to get resources. And sometimes you don't see the requirement of resources is not only in cash. For example, when the 3 regional parks were bought, the regional council didn't have the money, but they had strong investment in the port. That they eventually owned 56% of the port shares. But there was a moratorium on when they were going to get the money. So in the short term, Western Bay and Tauranga City put the money up by Papua Hills. And when the moratorium was lifted, the regional council came and paid for it. So what I'm saying is the high level, it should be who are the affected parties and who are the parties of interest. And you can drag a whole lot of people in Rotorua District Council as part of that because they're part of the regional economy. Port of Tauranga is the gateway to the world. Tourism is in Rotorua, so there's a link between. And here, where we are now, is the hub, is in between. So all these spin to win. That's a lawyer's term. To spin to win. And I think that's what it is. But if you're going to pay for it all yourself, you'll probably look around with new councillors. If they pass that, the best thing is to drag everybody and keeping it free.
Kia ora. Thanks, Murray. Cool. Thanks, Shad. First of all, just acknowledging, great to have the report together also with Elva's and Kepa's presentation. So it's starting to, well, for me anyhow, getting a good feel for what this whole package could potentially look like. Couple of, well, 2 or 3 things, Colin. I presume in terms of the that pedestrian bridge, you'd be knocking on Waka Kotahi's door also as part of that, in terms of third party. The other thing, what would help when it comes back, particularly, say for example, when we're considering the LTP, is clearly understanding what's already funded, but also then what the time frames are, because as you noted, not everything's going to happen in 1 year, and what that period of time is, because that's just important then for that potential allocation of funding over a period of time. So I think that would help, and as part of that, obviously being clear in terms of what's OPEX and what's CapEx as part of that process, but otherwise, yeah, really helpful in terms of getting a sense of what the various initiatives are and what that way forward potentially could look like. So well done to the team on that.
James? Yeah, so first question from me is, and I'm going to ask Cedric perhaps to comment on this one, our newish GM for infrastructure. To what extent have any of the numbers presented there been included in our LTP discussions that have taken place, mainly with the senior leadership team, and they're going to come to us in a couple of weeks, as I understand it. But is this an addition to where our SLT have got to, or is it, or have at least some of those been worked in there already? That's my first question.
Sure, Tato. Not that I'm aware of yet. I understand there's meetings coming up with EJ and Calvin to look at putting it forward. Teachers and IOP.
Okay, thanks, Cedric. And the other thing is that, I don't want to be a killjoy here, but there's a fair chunk of money and it's an extremely tight LTP this year. And I think it would be helpful at some point is to get some sort of idea about prioritisation, you know, which ones are really important to you and which ones are perhaps less so, or can be put out a little bit longer. I mean, Bill made the point that not everything can be achieved anyway, even if the money was there right away. So, but the reality is the money is not there right away, and so which ones are important for you soon, and which gives us perhaps the most bang for our buck. For example, the Waiari, a new bridge over the Waiari is a great initiative, but it takes a fair bit of money, and you might want more river access up front. So that sort of question I think would be helpful to understand. But I wish we could do it all, but I just have my, I've got to take this to my council at some point.
Any, Joel?
Kia ora tātou. Makes me rather nervous seeing all these LTPs and all this, and what James is just talking about makes me even more nervous. This is already a prioritised list. We've already stripped it down, ko rui a taite, waiho tai kāpa. So we've already taken away the Sepport, and we'll remain with the Heartwood here, and that's what's been spoken about at this time. I also want to make it clear that these cultural recognition items for tangata whenua, but because of how we operate as Māori, these will benefit the whole community, not just us. And I think that holds some weight. I'm not clear myself how the LTP process works, but it sounds like that we've got some numbers in the table now. It goes through an application process type thing in the LTP, and it gets agreed upon or it doesn't. From what you're saying, James, we've got a tight budget coming up, and some of these things may or may not get funded. For tangata whenua, these weren't negotiable, and I think there should have been some funds allocated at the beginning of the project, not giving us the dregs at the end. Yeah, and all of a sudden I think we've been making some decent progress, but when we get down to the dollars and this stuff's going to happen or it's not, ko waihoa tangata whenua ki te taha no, that we get left to the side again. When do tangata whenua get a decent chunk of what we deserve? I've already mentioned that this is only peanuts for the amount of water that's been taken out of our tribal rohe and given to others. I'll leave it at that.
Any other part-time comments on the report?
Yeah, I guess it's, mihi and tautoko for the work you've been doing so far. We just spoke amongst ourselves, a couple of us earlier, saying that there's feels like we are making a lot of progress with cultural recognition framework, but then it still seems like it's still unattainable. And I guess just kind of echoing what Joel is saying, also we've got a whole multi-million-dollar plant that's already in operation. However many millions that was, and just at an estimate, we could be sitting at just over $1 million with this. I know it's not quite the 200,000 that we kind of set aside, but just kind of echoing what Joel was saying, that we can get a whole plant, the latest technology, and tests and commissioned and consents and everything, and we're still, we're past probably 2 years of this discussion, and it still feels unattainable. It seems like the consent might lapse, and we're still talking about this. It's kind of how it feels, just being honest. And I guess when the cultural recognition was put to the iwi reps, and the question was posed, what might get in the way of having these being attained and put forward, and pretty much everyone mentioned council policy, and yeah. Do, I guess.
So Michael there makes a very good point. So maybe all up the expenditure that Tauranga City it costs to build that plant, that's the intake, the treatment plant, all the pipe work is just under 200 million. So you're quite correct. The number there is 1%. So it just helps to give you a bit of context, I think, around it.
Half a peanut.
Any other further comments?
Just, Chair, in terms of, I'm just picking up the point Joelle made in terms of that wider community benefit because of these range of initiatives. And just being clear, and I'm just thinking again when it comes back to us as the Commission for the LTP, is clearly understanding that component is that wider. I'm just thinking in terms of helping to work through that process. I have to say, Joelle, the LTP process is a beast and it is full of process, but we're stuck with it, and that's how it is. So, yeah, I just think perhaps some reframing.
Yeah, it's the outcomes for our communities that can be achieved. So, yeah.
Yep.
And I think the cultural significance of this is that people can learn about a lot about the Waiari area. And if we've talked about there'll be areas opened up for the wider community, but there'll also be areas that particularly will stay with people. But I think being able to tell the stories, being able to be able to listen to elders giving the explanation of how the Waiari was, physically being able to see what's out there can only benefit our communities. And so, I take your point, Kaitiaki is a good example around this, because ultimately you can take people off the bridge and you put it on a footbridge, therefore it's a safety aspect of the traffic. So there is, there's a number of ways you can spin it to get other parties involved. So yeah, I take your point, Bill, it's around how we present that. So, and probably what I need to do is I need to sit with, in fairness, with Western Bay's team, and we actually as a group can come up with some really good ones, I'm sure.
James?
Yeah, I think that's just right, Calvin. And I think obviously we've just been presented with a number, and it's a fairly chunky number, and you just start a little bit. But actually, between at least 3 partners, and maybe TET, and maybe some other external funders, and as I said before, you wouldn't do it in 1 year if everything was perfect. So between 3 or 4 partners over a number of years, with hopefully some early wins as well, suddenly the number becomes a lot less scary. And I absolutely agree that this is about providing quality community facilities, and that is how I've approached this all the way through. It just happens that it's something that is important to Tapuika and Waitaha, but it's about providing something for the wider community, and just like we did the concept plan for Otapai, that cost a reasonable amount, and it's funded, and so I see it in very much the same vein as that. But I just know that in this current LTP, projects like Otapai are very vulnerable to being cut back, and now there are some, there's a new inverted commas proposals, and I think there's some of that will be quite hard to get through my council. We're trying to cut a lot of stuff, and it's some things that I'm very passionate about getting done. I'm going to have to sacrifice, I think. John will be making that decision as the LTP committee chair. But I just want to signal that, because I absolutely want to get this stuff done, and I really love what's being presented. Just want to temper it with a wee bit of realism.
If I could just add, perhaps to what James said, that I hope Whena don't think that these are the only projects that may be cut back. The point that James made, there are a lot of other proposals that will get denied, and certainly I think I can say for James and myself, what lands on Western Bay's table, we'll be championing as strongly as we can.
I just wanted to highlight the education part and the significance of it. I think that education is an important part of being resourced. There's an old Māori saying that te roi tātou I ngā rā mua, te whakatika, te whakahaere a muri ake. What's all that all about? It means that we have to look back so we can have a clear guideline of where we're going forward. So if you look back at history, our education system was based on practice as well as theory. Today we have our education system based on theory, no practice. So what our kuras need to know is that they need to know what the river looks like, how to put their foot in the water, and all those sort of things, and not just learn everything by theory. And that's where you get the practice and the theory, not only just the theory. And so having resources for that is highly important, because we can go to the Second World War, and after the Second World War, the contribution that we had trade training and all that sort of thing. Well, those were the proper skills that came up with it to advance our country. Then that was all sold off by Roger Douglas. But anyway, that's another story. he sold all the jewels in the crown to foreign ownership. But these things here we could develop them ourselves and use them ourselves, and we would have that passed on in the rear vision mirror back to the kura, the schools, and all the younger generation, who will be able to carry the ball forward and have clear vision in the future. That's my wee wawaho about the importance of education.
Kia ora, thank you. Moko ora.
One thing that's not mentioned here is the water supply to Marae. Have we got any developments on that?
I might lead off on that one. I think we've made some quite significant progress in terms of the cultural recognition. We did send the staff away to do that because we wanted to understand what the costs were and how we were going to fund that. And I think we're all aware that the other aspiration was around access to water for individual marae. I suppose what I'm trying to navigate, I suppose, is that ultimately Western Bay are responsible to you, and from what I understand, haven't been deeply involved in it, is that from what I currently have access to water apart from one, but I understand the aspiration that access to the Waiari water scheme and what that might look like, and then also in particular to that supply. That hasn't been brought through in terms of what Calvin's put together. From a scheme point of view, and I suppose I'm being careful because we Tauranga City Council don't want to be overstepping when it comes to the relationship that we have with Western Bay, but ultimately it's a Western Bay. From a TCC perspective, ultimately it's a Western Bay matter to deal with the supply within Puke to the individual marae. Anyway, that's I suppose speaking on behalf of Tauranga City Council, that's the position of Tauranga City Council at this point. James.
So I just add to that Shad. So I think ultimately it's a policy position for us. How we collect funds for water volumetrically or the infrastructure charges, connection charges and so on, I think we can certainly consider different policy options. I haven't got the detail now or various potential options. I think it would be much preferable to treat that as a separate process to what we just heard from Kelvin with the cultural recognition. I understand that maybe in minds it's, that water is supply as part of that cultural recognition, but I think in terms of council processes, I don't want the marking that Kelvin's outlined to get hung up on a policy issue which is a lot, I think from my perspective, a lot more fraught and less clear about where we might go on that. So I'd rather get on with Kelvin's work and then consider the policy aspects of water supply separately. And I'm happy that our staff go away and think about that and present what might be possible and what might work.
Just to add to what James has outlined, because we did have a discussion about that matter at our last meeting, and I was just flicking through the minutes in terms of page 18, where it's very clear in the minutes in terms of the cultural recognition being separate from the water supply issue, and there are 2 or 3 bullet points there in terms of proposed process, but again separate from the cultural recognition loop.
Just a matter of interest, if you looked at the existing local government act or local council, what remissions and provisions do they provide for essential social services, community like churches, museums, and Maori parliaments, I suppose. And I'm talking about maraes, because the marae is where we bid farewell to the dead and welcome the living, so it provides that service. It's a place where we have karakia, it provides that service, and it provides all those essential social services. Where's the remission within your local government act that provides for that to the marae in terms of having that taken into account?
So I don't think it's a local government act thing. It would be a policy or bylaw from us that, and as I understand it, and correct me if I'm coming, like if I get this wrong, Cedric, is that the volumetric charge of water is free, and that's for marae, and also and that puts it on a par with community halls and that kind of social infrastructure. So one thing I think we would want to make sure is that if we make a change for marae, how does that look? Not only in this, for Waiari and Tapuika, but how does it look for other iwi and also across the whole district in terms of social infrastructure. So we just need to think through that very carefully about what's included, what's not, and why, the rationale behind all that. Because you're right, so that's why it's important. We do recognise that social infrastructure, and there are, remission's probably the wrong word, but there are, we have taken account of that function that they provide. I hope I got that right, Cedric.
John? Just perhaps to add to Maru's point in regard to the likes of schools and churches and other institutions, yes, they do have, they don't pay rates per se, but they certainly pay all charges associated with water as any other organism. So just so you have that in the back of the room.
Helen.
Sure, I just want to make some comments. I just want to put first of all, Kelvin, Ngamahi, the money that you've been putting into that has been awesome, and it's showing it's fantastic. But, when I think about cultural recognition from a tangata whenua point of view, it's actually correcting ahead. So, as you know, we settled in. So we come out of the settlement process. You end up with a crop settlement, but it's realistic. I mean, everybody got dipped in that settlement process. So the thing is, the point I'm making is we settled iwi, and after that, why is it that we still feel aggrieved and we carry this mamae? And how do we get rid of this mamae that we carry? So we have to be innovative about ways that we address that. And the mamae stems from the loss of whenua and that process of colonisation. So, and from Tapueka's perspective, you know, we argue that we retained between somewhere like 6% to possibly 9% of our total whenua after that process of colonisation. So here we are, we're mana whenua in our takapū, we own very little land, we have 28 plus rivers and streams that we believe we have rangatiratanga over. We don't want to see what happened on the Waiari happen when it comes to development in our takapū and water being taken without us being at the table having that discussion. We don't want to go there again. So, you know, this cultural recognition is far more important to us than it being a monetary value. It's actually going to address what happened in the process of colonisation for each of us, and sometimes it doesn't actually have a monetary value. So it's the recognition, it's having access. I'm not sure if you can actually understand. It's like having a language and not knowing it. So there's a lot of us that, you know, we're locked out of speaking the reo because we don't have it. It's the same with the whenua. It's the same with our connections that we have from the past that we don't have now. And the importance of that is that's where our identity and our culture comes from. And when you take that away, what are we? You know, so there's a whole lot of things that are hung up in that cultural recognition that's that doesn't even begin to touch on. And I just want you to understand that there's a bigger context. And while we haven't articulated it very well, this is all under the surface. And those are the things that you're actually addressing as well. They're not tangible things that you can measure. You know, there are, yes, I just thought I'd just put that in for you. Go on.
Firstly, thank you, Kelvin. The report is informative, but I just want to go back to this whole discussion we're having. So, when the water take consent was consented, and we're talking 6x637, that took place in 2010. We're sitting here today, 2023, with two iwi that one settled in 2013, the other in 2014, and we're still trying to work through this issue of water for our marae. I acknowledge the work that Western Bay have done in terms of our marae don't get charged, but we do get charged for the infrastructure. We don't get charged for the water we use, but we do get charged for that infrastructure charges. That may need to be communicated to our marae because there's obviously a misunderstanding. So we're still thinking that we still get charged for our water. The other bit is that it was also the affected area. So this tono actually is to both councils, those affected in Western Bay and those affected in Tauranga City Council. Some of us are aware of stage 2 and 3 in the Waiari, and therefore there's going to need to be conversations with the other iwi that are affected along the pipeline, along our marae lands. So I think it's actually a bigger conversation. It was initially a cultural recognition that was put forward. We've been parked to the side to work alongside the councils by itself. and this conversation really needs to take place. It needs to take place because it shouldn't be in an LTP process. When we were in hearings in 2007, it was put there then. Today is 2023 and we're all still here asking the same thing. I don't know what needs to happen. Most of us know how the project started. Is it not just the simple process of a MOU with tangata whenua, with the 4 iwi reps that sit here at the table with you? That's all I've got to comment on. I don't feel sorry for you for where you're going to find the $1 million to fund these cultural recognition. Yeah, but I look forward to seeing what comes out of it. Kia ora.
So one last thing. If we said, oh yeah, let's just chuck a pole up by the bridge, would that be standing right now? Just a part for cultural recognition.
Could you repeat that again? I couldn't quite hear you.
Oh, sorry.
At the beginning.
If we were asked for cultural recognition, for something to have our representation, if we responded with, let's erect a pole, maybe say down by the bridge there, would that be standing right now?
As in, would we have erected it?
Mm-hmm. As it would have been carved or created and then put up by now. So, because we'd started discussion, 2021-ish, around cultural recognition.
I might start. So I think when the Commission came in, we wanted to understand what cultural recognition might be, and I think we had allocated budget $200,000, I think, at the time, toward cultural recognition, and then also the conversations then proceeded with Western Bay and about a contribution. And I think probably 2 or 3 meetings ago we suggested we needed to get an understanding around what a package might look like, which is essentially what we've got today. So it has taken us a bit of time to get to this point of understanding the priorities, the list of projects, and then the budget, which I think is helpful and it's a good thing because we've got clarity now. I think even in those earlier discussions, we did indicate that we would still need to put it through our LTP. The original budget that TCC had in would roll over, but if there was anything additional, then we would still need to go back and increase that. Western Bay had nothing in their LTP. They had nothing allocated towards us. So it gives them a chance to go, let's lock that in now so we can deliver on the things, on the aspirations and those things. Could we have done that two years ago when we first? Probably. I mean, with the money we had at the time, 200,000, we probably could have done it. It could have been done. But would that have been satisfactory? Probably not.
I'd rather get the right result than the quick result.
Well, just going with Helen saying, even what we have come up with is a lot more than just tangible.
Sorry, Kelvin's going to
check. Can I go back to this issue around water supply? And speaking from Tauranga City's point of view, yes, we're guests in Western Bay's area in terms of our treatment plant. We acquire a piece of land up there, and taking what the Commissioner also said is that we had some direction in the last meeting around this was to be taken out and treated separately. I think I've listened to the iwi reps and this topic keeps coming up each time. The topic was there when I was at Western Bay 3 years ago. What I believe needs to happen is the process needs to be followed through. So at the last meeting, we were given some direction in terms that it quite rightly so, it's a policy that needs to be worked through and stuff, and to do that. I think, I obviously don't want to come back to future meetings and have this being raised all the time. It needs to have some directions and action that people can see what's going on. Irrespective of what the outcome is, it needs to be moving forward. And so I'm probably just going to ask through our chair, what could be achieved in terms of this, in terms of
putting policy up, takes a bit of time. It needs to work through, and you probably need to work with the local iwi reps here to make that happen, just so that there's a peace of mind that something's moving forward. Because I'm sure the vibes I'm getting is that nothing's happening. I'm not suggesting that's the case, but how do we give some credibility to the process?
No, I can definitely check in with staff to see what is being done or what we could do. I definitely agree with you in that I think this matter needs to be resolved rather than keep coming back at every meeting to be, have that mum eye over and over again. I think that's not very helpful. It is a complex issue from an infrastructure perspective, from a cultural perspective, from funding perspective, from a policy perspective. So I think we just need to work through that process, workshop it with Tangata Whenua, and hopefully land something that we're happy with, or at least appreciate why we sit where we do. It may not be an agreement that we were happy with, but there needs to be a good explanation that everyone is understanding of, at least. Chris.
Chris.
Sorry.
Carl.
Te aro ki ka tēnā koutou. Tēnā ko ngā tūhike, ngā tūmoko, tapu i ka whānui, ara ko waitaha, tainua maki, ko nei ki tūhaurangi ki Otukawa, kia tūhaurangi, whare e tū mai nei tēnā koutou, osira kia koutou ki tepu whānui, perhaps the matter, and what hoki koutou. I just thought, Your Worship, Leading, just to add to that, what probably needs to happen is for this to come onto our Kaipapa Marketing program, so I'll make it a priority to progress putting in front of our elected members the options around that other part of the water charges issue. So rightfully what's been said today is that the water consumption element of charges to marae has been taken away, so that's not charged to marae, more in line with a number of other community facilities across the district, but then just needs it will require for these issues that have been raised around how do we do that next part in the right way and in the rationale, with the rationale behind it. So that is something we will workshop with our elected members, and then I'll get our team onto that as a priority. Just wanted to acknowledge also the work that Calvin's done. It's been really beneficial for us at Western Bay to get in behind and alongside the work that Calvin's leading. So just back to the questions around Western Bay's contribution to the cultural recognition framework. So I put up a proposal to our senior leadership team as part of the LTP process for them to consider how they might support that. And Cedric, our GM of infrastructure, has just said that they're now at that part where they will look at how that carries through into the LTP deliberations that the elected members had before them. But I think the collaborative approach that Calvin's leading is giving us the ability to give confidence to our elected members around some of the challenges that they've raised with our respective LT processes that are in front of us and the constraints that are coming. Some of the stuff that is outlined in the cultural recognition framework we can already couple off with existing budgets. So in terms of the storytelling kaupapa, we wanted to bring to the Tangata Whenua reps the opportunity to use an outfit that we engaged to help us video corridor through a framework we developed for within council. They're an Auckland outfit led by a person who's done quite a lot of work with Māori television, a mokopuna of Valley Moonwalker, and bringing him in, and he's really keen to get alongside the people who Tangata Whenua want to put up to capture these corridor and then for you to decide how you want to use that resource. But so there's some scoping work around that project, but it's well underway alongside some of the stuff that DCC.
Thanks, Chris. Also just want to, well, it's probably a question for Kelvin, and just picking up on the points I think that Waiari made about, or was it might be Darling, about stage 2 and stage 3. I'm not familiar with marae across Tauranga, whether they are charged for water or not, or whether they charge for service fees. It would kind of make sense that whatever Western Bay do aligns with whatever we do in Tauranga City Council to make sure that we're kind of consistent. While there are lines on maps, Tauranga still extend into Tauranga City, and the same with Whakaue and Waitaha, and then the other way around. So it would be good to align and make sure that we're kind of joined up and not applying a different framework and a different set of policies to deal with this particular issue. Are you aware of how TCC apply that? Yeah, so I think it would make sense that actually there is alignment across both. So I've got a draft recommendation, picking up the point from the last meeting, and the recommendation, and understand Chris will workshop the cultural recognition stuff with elected members in terms of the draft LTP. But the recommendation is for request a workshop to be held with TCC staff and Western Bay staff and tangata whenua on the draft policy to provide water to marae.
I mean, if it's a broader issue and policy, there's an infrastructure element potentially as well. I don't know whether it needs to be captured in that, but I think it's, well, the policy could be the first off the rank. So
if we deal with the policy side of things, then ultimately things should flow from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does everybody need to be involved in that workshopping? Do you know where we'll deal with this?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I do.
You want to be involved in it? Do you guys want to be involved in it? Or? I mean, you're right. We know what the position is. Ultimately, you want free access to it.
Perhaps it's the role of Takawana to support, jumping in to be a part of that process, maybe?
Well, we'll set staff.
Yeah. And maybe the coaching, I don't know.
Yeah, I want to be involved.
Well, I mean, it's open. Is it Papa?
Oh, I just got a final comment, and it's really to Western Bay. I'd like you to seriously consider these 2 points when you're looking at your LTP. In comparison, what are these other proposals asking for? We're looking at sort of 1.5 mil here. And how many of them are your partners? Please seriously consider it.
Well, I think too, picking up on Calvin's point, there will be a letter drafted to support the submission into the LTP process from the members around this committee.
If you're taking a mover in seconds of shed, I'm happy to move the recommendation to receive the report on 22 together with the additional recommendations you outlined.
Do we have a seconder to that? Darlene? Yeah, we might add a C, so a letter of support.
Letter of support.
Was that from the committee, Kel?
Was that the letter of support for?
From iwi.
Yeah, it needs to come from iwi reps, and I know it's going to get Sam to do a bit of an overview, but I want their wording how they want to the content is what they want to put on. But I think it needs to come. One needs to come back to each council, and it can either be generic the same, or it can be different tailored to suit each council. The message is obviously they're supporting the process here, and that's the key thing. And they can do it individually, but it's cut as a collective group as well. I mean, that's how the LTP operates. It's based on the number of submissions you get. And, you know, if you get a large group of people that gets treated, you know, with some support with it, individuals get treated, but when you start counting up the numbers, if it's a big group, it's fine. That's what I'm saying. As a collective group, it's good to do that.
Yeah.
I think we'll leave that recommendation out on the set and continue to work with
Yeah, I'll follow that up. Meeting the room, I'll have a look at it.
Who's going to write the...
Me.
No, that would be because I'm not the only man with one. It's very brief.
Mr. Chair, there was just one point. So that budget I put up there at the moment, right, and you can see why I didn't put it out to anybody first hand, 3 times late. We need to take that and put it into this report so I can add some stuff and put a submission in. So I just need a recommendation to take that draft PowerPoint report and put it into a presentation on the basis of still going to have a meeting at the end of this month with the counterparts from each council.
So maybe you could have a resolution that the Waiari Kaitiaki Advisory Group supports the development of the cultural recognition program and supports the budget be developed. And you can either put the table in with the budget that came out of that, you know, and recognises that this is a potentially draft budget and supports the if you want to. I'm not sure if you do want to, but that's another way of getting it in, to say that as a group you support it, the progress, and would recommend that you know, that a submission support of the program goes to each of the 3 councils, to their LTP, and then therefore this group to each of your 3 councils.
Okay, I think I got it. So I got requests a workshop we have with Western Bay staff, TCC staff, tangata whenua and iwi members on the draft policy providing order to marae, supports the development of the cultural recognition program and recognises and supports the following table of draft budget presented, and then put the underneath the summary.
Yeah, we could probably say that supports a submission from the Waiari Kaitiaki Advisory Group to the 3 councils, Tauranga City, Western Bay and the Regional Council, in support of the proposed draft budget for the cultural recognition program as follows, and then put the table in. Yeah, along with
In that letter do we give a hint of the possibility of other players in the game?
Whatever you want to put in there. That's going to be constrained, whatever you want to put in there.
It could be that you have the 2 chairs, co-chairs, sign off, you know, the submission in support of that, so that there is, if you want to craft some words before you just put that in there, that would be a way of around it, so that
we could add noting that some of the funding may come from external sources.
Yeah, and external parties and external organisations such as what the Kaitiaki is.
Because collectively the 4 parties should be enough strength to rebuild political cells.
Okay. Do you want to come around? Sorry.
Yeah, you could just put
It's just
And then we just under the table. And then the table in there. And then you could, and subject to submission, then you could put an update on the subject to co-chairs. Sign up the submission.
Yeah, that's the workshop between staff and draft policy.
So the LTP, the three councils, LTP,
Do you think I need to go to drafting that policy? It's the job.
It's the TCC process on what's going to be done, the process for years,
that hasn't been decided.
yeah, so we come to that, that's not.
And just noting that posting that time frame and noting that and also noting, you can probably do noting that
and that's what we had the
time frame,
we just got
prioritisation, equal it, and even approval for any of the projects as yet to
just get an MOU drafted along on that.
Determined by each council.
Discussion today, it could be extra things that come forward in time. Does that come
Nah.
Well, it'll be a submission.
Yeah.
Depending on the content of the submission.
Okay.
To be able
So that would,
And just indeed would be note that the submission is that any changes to the submission will be well, actually yeah, I think they might be just that the submissions and be approved by the chairs prior to it. So you kind of delegates the authority
Coming back to us.
to the co-chairs to approve the appointment.
Right, so
Delegates and
Yeah, I'll just
to approve.
And
I can raise funding in some sources, funding splits.
Okay, so funding
Arrangement.
funding arrangement.
why did I stall as judges things like that? I want to go to Christmas
now I try and keep
I just want to pick your brains.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, I agree. I just think at least it's needed this discussion.
I think the other thing too is that
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Yeah,
Let's just get it. So I think it's a solution to this is some body work to look at.
Okay, couple, I think we've got the submission there. Okay, so the submission is that the Waiari Kaitiaki Advisory Group receives the report, the Waiari Kaitiaki Advisory Group Cultural Recognition Development Update, November 2023. B, request a workshop be held with Western Australian District Council staff, TCC staff and tangata whenua on the draft policy for providing free water to marae. C supports the submission from the group to the 3 councils LTP processes in support of the proposed draft budget, the table of the Cultural Recognition Program, noting that some funding arrangements will come from external sources. Also noting that timeframes, prioritisation and approval for the project is yet to be determined by each council. And then D delegates authority to the co-chairs to approve the submission. Any?
I just wonder if, because it's a submission to an LTP process, I've got to be careful not to be part of that submission. So I'm happy to support that you do make that submission, but it's got to come from...
You don't think it should come from the group?
I just wonder if that were the case, I might have to abstain.
From your participation in this item and your LTP?
Yes.
Well, that won't be the same for us, but... I don't know. I mean,
because normally you don't, you're not part of the debate and then submits to yourself. That's kind of a fundamental rule.
How's it work, Cole?
Well, you can, as long as you don't move second, it's really okay. And you can just say that you are, this is a submission from the Waiari Kaitiaki advisory group of which you are a member. But yeah, ultimately I don't see that there is a conflict of interest that would stop you from voting.
And you could talk to them.
Yeah.
Be part of the discussion.
As long as you don't pass the resolution. You need somebody else to pass the resolution. You might be doing
volunteers.
And that would be similar for us.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, we would be advocating for it with our colleagues. That's what we would be doing.
Rules of governance.
Well, we've got half of us here.
Yeah, only 2 to get it across.
Any other further comments? Okay, we've got a mover, so that was Bill and Darlene. Moved by Bill, seconded by Darlene. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Couple. I think it has brought us to the end, so there's no late items. Yes, it has brought us to the end. I just want to thank the staff and team, but also our tangata whenua members, and also to the Haukainga for hosting us today, to Haurangi, so tuku mihi kia koutou, I whakawātea mai tēnei wahanga kia mātou kia tahui nei, hui rā tātou I tēnei rā, me rira tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Me hoa atu te rākau, ki tētahi kia koera e mokoera, kia whakakapi tēnā o tō tātou nei hui. Tēnā. Tēnā.
Just while I got the last say, I just want to make a quick little stab that our last hui, chaired by Darlene, ended a lot earlier than this.
Because we didn't
but
have
we
the
gave
fight,
the authority,
we
gave the authority blames his uncle for setting the tone for the rest of the day this morning. So, tēnei hoki te mihi kia koe, e koro, e tū, tā wharau I ōuri, tā wharau ngā iwi katoa kua pai nei tēnei wā tēnā koe. O tira ka huri hoki kia kōrua, Ngāti hangarau meki, te tā I tēnei hui, wēnei whakapitiwhiti kōrero mo te ake tonu atu, no reira I mihi ana kia kōrua, kia ora rā. Hioi no kia tātou katoa, ki tēnā kua pai nei, ana kia haua no, kia tu haurangi, tapuni ka whānui, waitaha whānui, o tira tātou katoa kua pai nei. Ko tutuki, kua tēnei waka ki uta, o tēnei hoi poto nei, no reira,
Te akua nei, e hia kai ana Joel, nā reira, ka tere te karakia, ka whakapiti atu tātou ki a rongo mai pāpā. Nō reira, tēnā rā tātou. Kia whakairi ake ko te tapu o wēnei kōrero, ko te tapu o tēnei wānanga ki te whaitara whare, kia tūturu, kia awhiti whakamaua, kia tīnā,
Tīnā.
haui e, hui e,
Tāiki e.
Kia ora tātou.
Tēnā koe.